me doing research, it wasn't the first time someone has complimented me on my nerdiness. So,
well, that's a nice way to put it. I don't think of you as a nerd. But are you? Do you think of yourself as a nerd?
I don't think of myself as a nerd.
Okay. Good.
I'm not sure what my nerd definition is.
I would just say you seem really cool.
Oh, thank you. Now, your performances, I've seen you perform a couple times in the past. Very involved with the audience, lots of energy. That being said, though, on one of your tours, you had to do a number of shows from a wheelchair.
Yes.
What was that like for you, given the nature of the shows you put on?
Well, I had broken my foot during a show in California, in Hollywood, and it was actually a really great night. Sort of towards the middle of the set, I got tangled up in some of my own microphone cable, basically. And this had never happened before. It really was tangled, and I thought the way I would get out of it, I mean, I was singing the song. It was during the show. I didn't think too carefully, but I kicked my foot out trying to kick off the cables and unravel them. And then when I set my foot back down, I set it down with all the cables around, and somehow it tangled even further and rolled my foot. A very classic athletics or like sports injury where volleyball players or basketball players or tennis players, they roll their ankle. But if you twist your ankle badly enough, the muscle will actually, the tendon snaps the bone. And so I broke my foot on stage, and I could tell something was really bad. I've twisted my ankle many times on stage, and the best thing I've always learned is just to walk it off, to keep playing, because then actually you don't get the inflammation, you don't get the swelling that causes so much of the discomfort and the inability to walk and all that. If you just play through it, like they always say, just walk it off. And actually, I finished shows having twisted my ankle so bad I was going to puke. And by the end of the show, it was like it never happened. So I did that with this injury, figuring, by the end of the show, it'll be like it never happened. By the end of the show, I literally was nauseous with pain. My whole foot had swollen up. And there was just this very clear sense that I probably had broken my foot. Went to the hospital that night. They did the x-rays. Yes, you broke your foot. You're going to be on crutches for 6 months. And we had just started a tour that was going to go for the next 2 years pretty much. We were about to go to Japan, in fact, the next day. So we were faced with a choice as to whether we should cancel everything or reschedule it or just keep going. And I thought, well, okay, I didn't break my hand, so I could still play keyboard. I didn't break my other hand, so I can hold the microphone. I didn't break my head or my face. I can still sing. My throat's okay. If this is just the difference between me being able to walk around or not, I think I could still play the show. And we figured a wheelchair would still allow me actually to maneuver around the stage. Crutches on stage, one hand holding the mic, the other hand on the crutches, that would have been harder. I would have had to just stand very still. But a wheelchair, you could roll around. I could still cover the stage. And because my feet are locked down in that seat, I can actually really spaz out with the top of my body. So that's what I did and just try to make the best of it.
Are your performances, do you have like on my high school soccer team, a coach on the sideline saying, just walk it off whenever you get injured? Yeah,
the walk it off, the whole attitude. I mean, in some ways, it seems like the worst advice, I guess, because if you've got stabbed in the stomach, I don't know if that's something you could or would want to walk off, right? You want to get that taken care of.
Yeah.
But it's something like a twisted ankle, a sprain, maybe getting kicked in the shin, something that is very painful, but does not necessarily need to be so debilitating. I think walking it off is a great way to do it.
Kicked in the shin, does that happen more where audience members kick you in the shin, or do you kick yourself in the shin more?
I wear athletic shoes when I perform with the Andrew W.K. shows, and those have enough soft rubber on the soles as opposed to maybe like a military boot or some kind of dress shoe. That it's a lot harder for me to hurt my shins. I have kicked myself in the face before, and that was very painful, and that didn't matter what shoe I was wearing because it actually hit my knee. But as far as my shin injuries on stage, it's normally been when I've jumped into the crowd or jumped into unusual areas of the stage where there's been certain pieces of metal or railings at that very tender shin height. And that shin level is, that's a tender level.
You kicked yourself in the face. That seems like a very hard thing to do. Were you very athletic before your music career at all?
Yes, and let me just briefly explain. I saw a friend of mine in the audience, an old friend from Michigan. I hadn't seen him in years, and he just showed up at the show in New Orleans. I was so excited. I saw him in the crowd. I said, I'm going to really impress him. I'm going to do a really high kick, because he had never seen me play one of these shows before. So I did the highest kick I could do, and I think maybe the over-enthusiasm I had, it caused my knee to just go higher than normal, and my head maybe was down a little bit lower than usual, and that combination resulted in the second time I broke my nose. That was the first time I ever broke my own nose. And I broke my nose 3 times on stage. That was the first time, but that's the only time I've done it myself. I learned my lesson that day. Other than that, you were talking about the athletics. I was I guess athletic. My mom was very passionate about me being an active child, so she would enroll me in soccer and track and field and all the school sports as well. In the summer, I did swimming, swim team every year since since about 5 years old, all the way up until 16 or so throughout high school. I mean, and then I exercised a lot and worked out a lot. I lifted lots of weights and stuff. It was always a big part of my life. I don't know if that really helps at the show or not, because I feel like even when I've been very out of shape, when that music kicks on, it gives you superhuman power. I feel like when a mom is able to lift a car up over her head just to save her son who's trapped underneath, you get that superhuman strength in certain situations, and I think music gives that to everybody.
Do you follow many sports right now when you're on tour?
No, I haven't been that big of a sports follower, not for any real strong feelings against it. I actually really love professional basketball. My brother is a big fan of the NBA, and he always used to keep me up to date. When I used to live with him, of course, I was in the loop a lot more. A lot of the guys in the band were big football fans or baseball fans.